makes a buddy comedy unforgettable? Is it the chemistry, the quotable lines, or maybe it's just the insane chemistry of the cast?
That's my girl. Extra cheese?
Whatever it is, Black women are funny.
Tonight, we getting turned. That's right. I'm turned, Janine. Don't have to make it an adjective. Fancy things, my cribs, my cars, my pools, my jewels. Nigga, I done came up and I ain't changed.
You wanna buy my grandma's vintage speaker?
Your grandma just died. She ain't even in the ground yet.
BAYBEE! One of them days is such a fun ride. When best friends and roommates Drew, played by Keke Palmer, and Alyssa, played by SZA, discover Alyssa's boyfriend has stolen their rent money, the duo finds themselves going to extremes in a race against time to avoid eviction and keep their friendship intact. Now, the first thing I'll say about the movie is that it is hilarious. A la the days of 90s gold, including House Party, Rush Hour, and of course Friday. We're witnessing a cult classic in the making, an opportunity for funny, lighthearted, nearly wholesome comedy. Now, there are F-bombs flying, okay? It is an R-rated flick, so I'll give that warning at the top, but a comedy film, no less, that's not overly raunchy or gross is very exciting, at least for me. And you know what else is exciting? Not having my rent money stolen because my personal information is actually protected online. In a world where we all need to remember that digital privacy is not a joke, it's refreshing to have something that's working for you. That's why this video is sponsored by Aura. True story, one of my coworkers just had their entire financial life turned upside down because someone got a hold of their online information. Their accounts got frozen and the scam was set up that they could only receive money, but they couldn't actually send any money out. That's where Aura comes in. They keep your digital life locked down by identifying data brokers who are selling your personal information, and they automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. After just a few weeks with Aura, you should stop seeing your information pop up when you search yourself, which means way less spam in your life. And y'all, I just cannot take another spam text message. I'm getting sick of it. Now, they'll also continuously monitor the dark web and alert you if they find your personal information exposed, letting you know ASAP if anyone is trying to mess with your accounts. They'll even give you up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should things just go sideways. Now, I just started using the Aura app, and with their VPN, there's over 100 virtual locations. That means that you and me could watch movie releases that aren't available in the US yet. Perfect for keeping up with those international films without having to wait months for them to hit the streaming platforms. So you guys can check out my link, aura.com/TiffanyBirdHarrison, for a 14-day free trial to see if any of your data has already been exposed. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back into it. Now, y'all know how we do. I gotta take you into a little bit of history behind the buddy film genre and why One of Them Days was such a delightful take on this long-standing tradition in Western cinema. The buddy film is a subgenre of an adventure and a comedy film in which two people go on a mission or a road trip, and those two people typically meaning men with contrasting personalities. So the friendship between them is really the centered relationship in any buddy film. So pre-1930s, the buddy film finds roots in literature, 19th century Mark Twain with characters Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer, and the comedy roots really exist in classic theater, including vaudeville and minstrel shows that evolved even into those silent films. Think slapstick comedies that rely heavily on visual gags and prank falls. This includes the exaggerated, absurd scenarios, background music to make things funnier, and everything that grounds that humor in the insane situations. The 1930s to 1960s, male comedy duos appeared in buddy films, including what one writer called escapist wartime fantasies. And these films really focused on the male friendship and culminated in quintessential landing of the hit play turned film, The Odd Couple in 1968. Now that plot concerns two mismatched roommates, sounds familiar, right? A neat and uptight Felix against a laid-back and easygoing Oscar. In the 1970s, the decade's films really focused on the male friendship once again, but this time as a response to the feminist movement of the time. So this starts to move into more biracial pairings with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. There's the insanely popular Stir Crazy.
See you later. I'm just gonna stand over here for a while.
Don't leave me, please.
No, I'll just be over here.
And that leads into a slew of hits in the 80s with Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours, Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd, Lethal Weapon with Danny Glover, Die Hard with Bruce Willis, and Reginald Vell Johnson from Family Matters. So by the time we get to the 1990s, we see breakout hits in a female buddy film with Thelma and Louise in 1991, and of course Rush Hour in 1998 with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. But Friday, we'll be making so many comparisons to the movie Friday in this video.
Break yourself, fool!
Now, the first thing that I noticed in watching One of Them Days was that it definitely calls back to so many of the great cult classics that we all know and love. As soon as the movie trailer dropped, the fans were already calling out the similarities to Craig and Smokey on their day-long adventure to get money or die trying. The two main characters, Drew and Alyssa, are roommates, they're best friends for over 7 years, and they're very, very different from one another. Drew is the ambitious waitress trying to work her way up that corporate ladder to be a franchise manager, and Alyssa, a laid-back artist whose hobbies include crystals, good vibes, and a homeless boyfriend whose only prowess is in the bedroom.
Excuse me?
I'm just saying we already got 3 people living in one space, right? We gotta be a little bit more thoughtful around here.
Is that mother wearing my robe?
Now, the mismatched personalities are relatable and funny, but it's really successful here because the actors are likely playing versions of themselves. Now, the movie is set up this way, and I can see how the legacy of Black women in comedy films really cleared the path for this movie to exist. Okay, Babs walked so Girls Trip could run. But notice, 1997 to 2017, that's a 20-year age gap between those two films, and here we are, another 7 years from Girls Trip, just getting One of Them Days produced. Now, part of the reason for that is because Hollywood struggles to find Black women valuable beyond the surface level tropes. Beyond social media co-opting Black culture to sell products, Black women are seen as a risky bet when it comes to the box office. Unless we're in stereotypical roles of angry struggle or sassy sexuality. And that was what's really refreshing about One of Them Days. It does not rely on either of those tropes to be successful. Instead, it puts slapstick and goofy humor at the forefront with that insecure, resonating factor. See what I did there? And the female friendship is the glue. This comedy actually had heart, which is a delicate balance without sliding into more of a dramedy sort of feature. Now, it's not to say that there aren't other incredible female-led buddy movies, Bridesmaids, Joyride, but seeing two Black women as the primary protagonists was definitely a welcome treat. And I do have to say, it's beautiful to see funny women experiencing a ton of praise in the likes of Issa Rae, Quinta Brunson, Robin Thede, amongst others, who are having just such an incredible run in this comedy space. Speaking of incredible run, this film has not only gotten a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, but grossing over $45 million domestically and counting against a $14 million budget, which really just speaks to the power of Black women in these comedy roles. And before you start arguing with me about insert other color person here, let's just be very, very clear. This video is about Black women in comedy, okay? It's about Black women in comedy. And even if I don't mention your fave, your favorite comedian, you can feel free to drop them down in the comments below. So when we talk about funny girls from the last few decades, the names that immediately come to mind, Tashina Arnold, Wanda Sykes, Whoopi Goldberg, Tracee Ellis Ross, Kim Whitley, Maya Rudolph. But one person that I always feel like doesn't get enough praise, and she definitely deserves it, is Queen Latifah. Miss Dana Elaine Owens is, in my opinion, one of the most slept on and funniest film actresses of the 90s and 2000s. From Living Single to Bringing Down the House to Beauty Shop, Queen's greatness really leans into the ridiculous, campy style that we've come to love in this genre.
You know Lil Kareem is yours! Why?
She also can pair very well with pretty much any other actor and hit you with the undeniable chops that you can't teach someone in a few improv classes. Now, another favorite of mine, Regina Hall, is so funny in everything she does. People don't immediately think to cast her as a lead, but they should, because she's more than proven that she will steal your scene. And similar to the Queen, Regina plays off of other actors so well because of her ability to elevate the role beyond what's on the page.
Hold up! How come every time some skirts happen that we need to stick together, you white people always say, let's split up? We gonna die, yo.
So similarly, One of Them Days strikes gold with the lights of Keke Palmer alongside her sparring partner in SZA. I sat in the theater watching this movie and I could hear how witty the script was, like literal laughter in the theater. So Rita Singleton penned a really great piece, but I think it jumps off the page the most because of Keke's delivery and her and SZA's chemistry. And chemistry can be very hard to create, predict, even with stunt casting. Now, stunt casting is when you cast a very famous actor or another celebrity as a guest star in a movie or a TV show in order to get more publicity. I used to do it a lot more back in the 90s and 2000s. It's kind of phasing out these days, but you likely would see this used in past comedy franchises where production would cast those side roles, those offshoot characters, with the goal of pulling their fans in to make something more commercially successful. So we will talk more about stunt casting and stars in this movie later, but let me start with Miss Palmer's resume for the uninitiated. Lauren Kiana Palmer is an author, host, actress across stage, TV, movies. Her breakout role came at the age of 12 with the film Akeelah and the Bee, and it launched her into early prominence with her own TV show on Nickelodeon called True Jackson VP, and then into MTV's Scream and Disney Channel's Jump In, and 2019's Hustlers, and Jordan Peele's critically acclaimed Nope in 2022. But Keke's dominance is not just on screen. She has a viral moment in social media interviews and online. So she really is considered a social media icon.
That's a slave hymn.
Grammy-winning SZA is a star in her own right, with this being really her film debut.
It's a little bit harder to be so comfortable when I don't really know what is happening. I don't know. I don't know what the hell going on.
So we can assume that Sony Picture Release was aware of its own potential for greatness with the two leads, but the runaway success of this movie is likely unexpected. You know, before the movie dropped, I remember peeping headlines that weren't betting on this film in any commercial way, but we've talked about why that is on other videos on this channel. Issa knew what she was doing by stacking the cast this way. If you compare the likes of 1995's Friday, Ice Cube took a very similar approach, pulling as many comedians as he could into his neighborhood tale of unemployment, drug dealing, and facing your bullies head on. Now, Friday also relies on the charismatic performances of its stars. Chris Tucker, John Witherspoon, Nia Long, Bernie Mac. They tell a hilarious story. And it understood that to make a big splash with a smaller budget film, the ensemble connection had to be on point. That was one of the first things I noticed about Drew and Alyssa in One of Them Days. You see that Drew is trying her best to get ahead, and Alyssa is doing her best to get it in. The friends know each other's triggers, and it instantly felt like Keke and SZA had been friends for much longer than their on-set connection.
You're the what, not the... I'm the one, not the two. You're the what, not the... I'm the one, not the two. I'm the one, not the two. Yeah, I love you.
It took less than 6 minutes into watching to realize they just had it. The it that's often missing when I watch a lot of modern movies. It's this familiarity, kind of an authentic connection that you just can feel through the screen. And a great scene that showed this is really their first time in the apartment. We see how they relate to one another, they live together, but they also get on each other's nerves, the same way that your girlfriends do when they don't get their stuff together. Now, I've seen a lot of appearances for the film, the marketing where Issa, Keke, and SZA are laughing and cackling with each other, and that authenticity and warmth that Black women really can exhibit in groups when no one is asking them to explain anything and they can just be themselves. Just cue the Moesha theme song or the Waiting to Exhale scene where they're dancing at the sleepover. But you can tell when something is just clicking for the cast and they actually have a genuine synergy with one another. Now, whenever I talk about a movie being funny, I always feel a little weird trying to connect the dots on why it's funny, because funny is subjective, obviously, but I can say that my favorite thing is when a film has a simple concept with the characters being the biggest comedic point. So the director, Lawrence Lamont, he made this point when he said in an interview with Uprising, "I like simple stories. Not to say this is a simple script, but if you think about stories like Home Alone or Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the concept is simple. Most of the human population knows what it's like to have to pay the bill next month." And I think that really encapsulates for me why this film was so refreshing. The movie is not trying to do too much, okay? It's not trying to complicate the narrative. It isn't shoving a bunch of modern themes into the mix or just making references to stay current. It's actually focusing on the human experience and the themes that everyone understands, because we all know what it's like to get our rent money quickly, okay? We all know what it's like to accomplish an insane task by the end of the day. It also means that we can trust the characters as long as they establish who they are quickly. So One of Them Days uses the first act to tell us who Alyssa and Drew are. They use the second act to show the major problem, and they invite us to tag along to try to solve it by the third. Simple. But this is also not a new formula. Like, my favorite callbacks happen in other comedy movies. So Friday, for example, same thing, set in the LA hood, two polar opposite best friends. They've got neighborhood bullies, they've got money problems, and they have a countdown to their eventual demise. They even have a fight scene where they have to confront their own personal Debo.
I'm Debo. Who? Debo.
Now, you might think that this is copy-paste, but again, this genre is already established. The secret sauce is really in the way the actors bring unique energy to their roles. One of my favorite scenes is when Drew and Alyssa decide to go and confront Alyssa's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend at his new girl's apartment. Drew takes responsibility for providing the distraction, while SZA climbs through the window of the apartment to a sleeping Keyshawn to hopefully recover the rent money that he stole from them.
Your boyfriend took our rent money and dipped.
I invested in it. This is our future.
I laughed out loud because of how committed they each were to their respective posts. But that scene could have easily have fallen flat if Keke and SZA didn't give it the absurdity it needed. The same can be said of the blood bank scene. Woo child, I was not expecting all of the stuff that I saw with the blood bank. But of course, we get an appearance from Janelle James of Abbott Elementary fame, and it was giving the awkward black girl energy. It was immaculate. It was silly. It was goofy. It was kind of gross. I was here for it. It's clear that they were paying homage to so many comedy tropes, including physical gags and slapstick, but the new take for this generation is what really made me smile. Now, I have a lot of good things to say about the movie, but I will call out a weakness that I did see in the film. Okay, so remember earlier when I said we would talk about the stunt casting. So the strength of the film is in the leads, but the weakness of the film is also in the casting, particularly with the recognizable comedians in those offshoot roles. I would wager to say that selling this film out the gate was really about how could they bring the social media component in. Both Keke and SZA have major followings, so how can we get those people to go to the theater? They clearly accomplished their goal. The many social media influencers who appeared in this movie and were able to encourage their fans to go see it, they made their budget and then some, so they definitely did their thing. But harkening back to my other video called Box Office Flops, we know the goal of producers and studios is to get a return on investment. It's really one of the reasons I think movies should not cost so much money to make, because the extreme budgets are unnecessary, especially for some of those lackluster stories coming out of Hollywood. But let's say you need to pitch your film to investors. They're more likely to come on board if you have a big name attached. Issa, Keke, SZA, checkity check check. But you also have to prove your marketing. Who do you bring on next? Cat Williams, maybe, who arguably kicked off 2024 in the most insane fashion by semi-prophesying the 12 months of chaos that was the last year. And then you bring in Maude Apatow, Lil Rel, Janelle James, the co-writer and actor of The Blackening, Dwayne Perkins, Tony Baker, Joshua David Neal, and bam, accomplished all that and more. But that doesn't mean that casting those side characters is automatically gonna work. For me personally, I was confused by Cat and Lil Rel's featured moments because it seemed off somehow. They're hilarious comedians, so I couldn't tell if this was a limitation of the script or if they weren't allowed to improvise on set, but something was amiss. It just didn't hit those comedy beats.
Please get out.
Now, the scene where they introduce Lucky, for example, the unhoused man outside the payday loan place, it had the makings of an Ezel-like character from Friday.
Mugger, you know I ain't the smartest man in the world, but from over here, it look like you taking it.
Cat definitely grounded it in truth. He didn't try to be funny, which is exactly what good actors do, but it was almost too serious. His lines were comedic, but the delivery was dramatic.
Cover up, your lady bits are showing.
Lucky, how the hell did she get up there?
It kind of reminded me of Eddie Murphy in You People. There was this mismatch in the style, and it didn't quite highlight Cat in the way that a pimp named Slickback would.
Don't do it, ladies. Don't do it. It's a trap. Don't do it. And it's a cycle. It's a cycle. It keep happening. It's a cycle.
In films where comedians get together, they really do their best work when they can riff off of one another. That's usually where the funniest lines come from, when comics get to be comics. But in this case, I just wondered if there was some breakdown failure of modern comedy. Like something I've noticed in previous buddy films, for example, there's a respect to history and legacy when it comes to their ideas. Think of Charlie Chaplin or The Three Stooges or Bustin' Loose or House Party. Comedy building blocks that this stuff already stacks on top of. It's like when songs get remixed to oblivion on TikTok and folks think, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. Now, there's nothing wrong with a remix or a fresh take on something, but knowing where things come from is really important context when you're building on creative ideas in the future. So the biggest meh moment in the film for me is that those comedic moments just did not pair that well together. It seemed like some portions were locked into the old school comedy style and some in the new school, and they didn't quite cross over. Now, that's definitely not a reason to skip the movie because I thought it was still a great film, but it did give me pause while I was watching. Now, a positive I would like to tout is how successful comedies can launch mainstream careers for the ensemble cast. So my hope is that this movie could be a huge boon for the likes of Joshua David Neal, Tony Baker, Kayla Matroso Mejia, Dustin Ybarra, Aziza Scott. I thought all of them did a great job in their respective roles. The way that I could see this movie working out is with serious franchise potential. The characters are well established, and the leads did a really great job in their world building. It reminds me of Harold and Kumar, or Are We There Yet? You know, something where you could have multiple films in the franchise. But I also know that trying to capture lightning in a bottle twice is not always for the best. And so my biggest question is like, how are they going to maximize on this moment? I don't typically like squeezing the juice out of an orange twice squeezed, but I just don't want it to feel exploitative, you know, if it's on a more meaningful piece. But with comedy, I do think that some things warrant a part 2, a part 3, and I could easily see Alyssa and Drew in different scenarios, maybe going on vacation. I could even see them doing a series if they wanted. I guess I'm just really proud of them, and I'm excited about this existing because, frankly, this cast, this crew, they've been on every major platform the last few months, and the comments are so lit. People are loving the duo, the trio. SZA, although I don't really follow her music, she did a good job for her first film. And as a longtime Keke fan, she's very talented, obviously works hard, so it's really great to see her star rise too. Not to mention that marketing team. Listen, Keke is their dream, okay? The comments cannot get enough of her, and she really does need to be top billing if you want people to come out and support your film. Now, of course, huge kudos to Issa because although I did not stick around for every part of all the seasons of Insecure, I respect the heck out of that woman's genius. She has made her own way with her company Hooray Media and made people pay her to air her shows and ideas. She's putting people on. She's throwing money behind diverse representation. She platforms people that look like me when so many others would consider that a risk. So One of Them Days is not just fun and hilarious and heartwarming. It actually speaks to a huge boon in the film industry, in my opinion, especially for the way that it tackles this POV. And the movie is making huge strides towards getting more Black women in comedy greenlit in a major way. Like maybe people will finally start to take notice. That doesn't mean that we actually have to wait for people to say yes. Okay, we can go support those films now. We can start making these things now. We can build out spaces for these stories if we want to. But as someone who has done a lot of sketch comedy and improv, it's something that I'm really, really happy to see. And if we could replicate the success of a Rush Hour or Step Brothers while centering Black women in particular, that would be an incredible addition to this genre and could take it to a whole different level. Now, if this didn't convince you to go watch it, I would like to know your thoughts in the comments. If it did, I would love to know what you thought of it. And I hope you will consider watching something new. If you've seen The Hangover, Wedding Crashers, House Party, White Men Can't Jump, you can go see Black women be funny too. Now, I do want to say thank you again to Aura for making this video possible. And thank you guys for watching. You can join my Patreon if you would like to support. The Patreon fam is always there and they have been so consistent even when I haven't been. But I encourage you to join the community, join the conversation. We have so much new content coming up and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye now.